This video examines real cases of juvenile offenders whose actions shocked entire communities and permanently changed lives. Each story explores how curiosity, obsession, rage, or long-term neglect pushed young people past a point of no return. Rather than focusing on shock, this breakdown looks at warning signs, motivations, and the consequences that followed. When people think of violent crime, children are rarely the first image that comes to mind. Society often associates youth with innocence, growth, and second chances. But these cases show how quickly that image can collapse when warning signs go unnoticed or ignored. Each individual in this video came from a different background, yet their paths shared disturbing similarities. Isolation, exposure to violence, untreated mental health issues, and fascination with extreme behavior all played a role. By the time their crimes were discovered, the damage was irreversible. These stories are not presented to glorify violence. They are presented to understand how early intervention might have changed outcomes that ended in permanent loss. On April 6, 2018, Wadsworth, Ohio, became the center of an investigation that would haunt local authorities. 17-year-old Gavin Ramsey targeted an elderly neighbor who had lived peacefully in the community for decades. The crime remained undiscovered for several days, giving investigators no immediate answers. When the victim failed to respond to phone calls, a family member contacted police. Inside the home, officers found evidence that pointed to a calculated act rather than a random intrusion. A single item left behind would later connect Ramsey to the scene. During questioning, Ramsey admitted responsibility and described a fascination with violent criminal cases that had developed over time. Investigators learned that he had followed notorious offenders online and spoke about violence in troubling ways. In court, the victim's family described not only the loss of a loved one, but the betrayal of trust that came with it. Ramsey's own family struggled to reconcile the person they knew with the crime that had been committed. In January 2019, a judge sentenced Ramsey to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Appeals were denied, confirming that his future would be spent entirely behind bars. If this case raises questions about obsession, the next one reveals how curiosity alone can turn deadly. On February 27, 2021, Grand Junction, Colorado was shaken by a crime that investigators described as deeply disturbing. 19-year-old Brian Coey selected his victim deliberately, believing the individual would not be missed by society. After the crime, evidence was discovered in Coey's home that removed any doubt about his involvement. When confronted by police, he admitted responsibility without resistance, explaining that he had wanted to commit a violent act for a long time. Friends and classmates later described Coey as withdrawn and fixated on violent figures. His fascination with infamous criminals was well known, and his behavior had raised concerns years earlier. At trial, the defense argued mental illness. Prosecutors focused on planning and intent. After a lengthy proceeding, the jury rejected the insanity claim. In February 2023, the judge sentenced Coey to life without parole, stating that the crime demonstrated an extreme danger to the public. While 19 is still young, the next case forces a far more unsettling question. In March 2011, Jacksonville, Florida, became the focus of national attention when a 12-year-old boy was charged in the death of his 2-year-old half-brother. Christian Fernandez was barely old enough to understand the legal system, yet he stood accused of a crime that shocked the country. Investigators uncovered a history of abuse, neglect, and instability in Christian's life. Violence had been a constant presence, shaping his understanding of conflict from an early age. During questioning, Christian admitted to causing the injuries. His case sparked widespread debate about juvenile responsibility, rehabilitation, and the limits of punishment. Christian became the youngest person tried as an adult in Florida at the time. He later accepted a plea deal and received a life sentence with the possibility of parole. After serving several years, he was released, a decision that continues to divide public opinion. Some crimes grow from chaos, but others are planned with chilling clarity. In October 2009, St. Martin's, Missouri was forever changed by a crime involving 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante. Investigators learned the act had been planned days in advance, driven not by anger or fear, but by curiosity. Evidence showed preparation and an attempt to blend into search efforts afterward. Personal writings revealed a disturbing lack of empathy and a desire to understand what taking a life felt like. The case deeply affected the community, especially because of the young age of both the offender and the victim. In court, Alyssa pleaded guilty to avoid trial. She received a life sentence with the possibility of parole decades later. In recent years, parole has been denied, with future reviews scheduled far into the future. The final case shows what happens when violence escalates beyond a single person. On July 30, 2012, a robbery in Providence, Rhode Island, escalated into one of the state's most notorious crimes. 16-year-old Russell Burrell and accomplices entered an apartment expecting drugs and money. Instead, 3 people lost their lives within minutes. Prosecutors described the crime as deliberate and emotionless. Families spoke about the permanent void left behind, describing daily life without their loved ones. In 2014, Burrell pleaded guilty and received multiple consecutive life sentences. The case marked one of the harshest juvenile punishments in Rhode Island history. These cases differ in age and motive, but they share common patterns. Isolation, fixation on violence, untreated trauma, and escalation without intervention appear again and again. Understanding these warning signs does not excuse the crimes. It offers insight into prevention and responsibility. Every case ends the same way: permanent loss and irreversible consequences. If you want more fact-based examinations of serious criminal cases and the systems surrounding them, consider subscribing. Your support helps us continue responsible, educational reporting on difficult topics. Click here to watch the next video.